The Vancouver Canucks continue to make moves ahead of trade deadline. A Tyler Toffoli update, and this is a huge report coming out on a Canucks top prospect. I'll get into all this later on this episode. Before I start, I just want to say to the 1,200 of you guys that are subscribed or close to 1,200, I want to say thank you so much. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to go down, hit the subscribe button. We're going to be here all season to give you updates on the Canucks, especially tomorrow during deadline. So make sure to go down, hit the subscribe button, and don't miss out on a video. With that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Canucks making moves plus a Tyler Toffoli update. The first thing I did want to touch on was Chris Johnson speaking on Phil Kessel. He said, things remain on track for Phil Kessel to sign with the Canucks before tomorrow's 3 p.m. Eastern trade deadline. He needs to be on the reserve list by the time in order to be eligible for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, obviously, we've seen Phil Kessel come over. He joined Abbotsford. He's been practicing with them. He seems like he's totally ready in game shape to be signed by this Canucks team and possibly to get in the lineup. I know we have a lot of wingers. I know there's a lot of players in this lineup that might be physically faster, whatever it might be, than Phil Kessel. But they have one thing Phil Kessel doesn't have, and that's multiple Stanley Cups and playoff experience. Phil Kessel's a guy that can come in, fill out this locker room, no pun intended. Just add stuff to this team that they might need down the stretch. A guy that's going to be able to let guys know how hard it's going to be, help players get through this, and he's the type of guy you can fit into this lineup, and especially in a pinch, in your middle six to just produce more scoring. The big thing with Phil not being signed at this very moment is obviously they're waiting until the very last minute. They want to sign him when the cap doesn't mean anything, when they have every move they want done, and when it just ultimately isn't going to affect how they approach deadline. But talking about approaching deadline and wingers, the second thing I wanted to talk about was just a Tyler Toffoli update. So Tyler Toffoli was held out of the game tonight due to trade-related reasons. Now, the first thing is there was a whirlwind of rumors just coming out of the Devils locker room or management, whatever it might be. First off, you had Toffoli was on the block. Then you had their management come out and say, no, he's not on the block. We want to sign him. Those extensions fell through. So it seems like Toffoli is once again on the block. And it seems like he's more than certainly getting moved before the deadline. So the big thing with Toffoli is you're looking at this guy with guys like Jake Guentzel off the block. It seems like his value might shoot up. And in my opinion, I think it's going to slowly creep down. I mean, when you do look at this full Jake Guentzel trade, obviously Carolina got Jake Guentzel at 25% retained, Ty Smith. But when you do look at Pittsburgh's return, there's 3 prospects here, a conditional first and a conditional fifth. The big things that would look at this, that conditional first would drop to a second if Carolina does not make the finals. With these 3 prospects here, I was looking at some elite prospect scouting, and some of these guys are ranked as a top 9 at their potential, a bottom 6 forward, and a guy that might not pan out. Then you also have a conditional 5th round pick along with it. So right now you're looking at this and you're saying, hey, 3 prospects, a first, a fifth, Michael Bunting. Yes, Bunting's a good player. Yes, you're getting 3 prospects. You're getting a conditional first. But the big things with this is this first might turn into a second. All 3 of these prospects weren't any of Carolina's top prospects. Yes, you get Michael Bunting. Yes, you get a 5th round pick. But the Canucks have a lot to offer, and it seems like they can go out and get a guy like Tyler Toffoli without giving up any main pieces. Maybe this is like a Jonathan Lekar-Mackie. You don't need to move him out. DPD, you don't have to. Willander, you don't have to move these guys out to get someone like Tyler Toffoli. Maybe you use a B-level prospect. Maybe it takes 2. Maybe you throw a couple picks in there. But it doesn't seem like the Canucks are going to have to budge on their top prospects, and that's the main thing to look at this. Like I said, you're getting 3 prospects. This was a first, that could be a second, a player, a fifth, and I do think Vancouver has a lot of value they can give up for a guy like Tyler Toffoli. Obviously, there's going to be a bidding war. There's teams like the Kings that are on him. Apparently, the Leafs are in on him. There's so many teams rumored to be wanting a guy like Tyler Toffoli. The Canucks might get into a bit of a bidding war, especially with, like you said, Mantha off the board, Guentzel off the board. Jason Zucker is still a third option the Canucks could look at. But I truly do think the Canucks have the package and the pieces to get a guy like Toffoli in, and I think he fits in incredibly in this top 6. Now, when you do look at this, there is another thing to talk about. Sweden's top Canucks prospect playoff status. Lekkerimäki with Abro has 2 games remaining and carries a 2-point cushion in the playoff table. Elias Pettersson, and this is DPD, plays his final game tomorrow. They are well out of the playoff race. And this leads into the second topic, which is Pettersson joining Abbotsford. Now, the first thing I do want to say is, in Lekkerimäki's case, he'd be on his own in the playoffs. He may play World Championships weekends May 10th. Otherwise, he could join Abbotsford, which it's not too likely. With DPD, he could join Abbotsford ASAP. There's a scenario where he jumps back over to Albro to suit up with Lekkerimäki, but I haven't heard this. And this was from Dave Hall. So the big thing with this is, like I said, obviously Jonathan Lekkerimäki's team is in the playoff hunt. Unless they get knocked out of this playoffs quite soon, I don't see him joining Abbotsford. But the big thing is to look at a guy like DPD. And a report did come out from Rick Dolly, and he said his agent tells me Elias Pettersson will wrap up his league play in Sweden this weekend and travel to Abbotsford next week to join the Canucks in their playoff hunt. So this is quite a big report. This is one of, I'd say, a top 5 Canucks prospect within their system right now. And if you want to know more about him, this is exactly what I'm going to show you right here. Pettersson is, and like I said, when I say Elias Pettersson, I'm talking about DPD. He's 20 years old. He's a defenseman. He's 6'4", 210 pounds, left-handed shot. He was drafted by the Canucks in the 3rd round, 80th overall in 2022. You can see some of his highlights below. And the big thing is when you're looking at this guy, he adds a lot. Yes, he might not be the flashiest on the ice. He has 33 games played, 3 goals, 11 assists, 14 points. But the big thing to look at, and especially with what's being shown here from Elite Prospects, is Elias is a good skater with a long stride. He can travel with the puck and is quick out of corners. He is very involved in his game, and it drives with his fast first pass or puck traveling. He has good control in his head up. He uses mobility to reach gaps and likes his shot with hits too. Elias is not only physical, he is highly competitive in his own end, and when a team needs him, he steps up. Now, like I said, this guy is only 20 years old. He's a left-handed shot, 6'4". He still has room to grow. And this is a name I definitely recommend you guys to get used to. This is a guy that's going to end up joining this Canucks team in the near future. You're going to see him in Abbotsford in the next week or two, especially once he gets in, gets comfortable on the ice, and helps Abbotsford make their push. I mean, we could see a Vancouver Canucks and Abbotsford Canucks back-to-back Calder Cup and Stanley Cup champions. I think that would be outstanding. So I know there's a lot of information to take in on this video. What's your thoughts on Phil Kessel being signed tomorrow by 3 p.m.? What's your thoughts on the Toffoli rumors? Are you kind of upset they didn't get Gensel? Would you rather Toffoli at the end of the day, or would you rather just go out and pay the cheaper price for a guy like Jason Zucker? Or maybe someone I didn't talk about. What's your thoughts on Jonathan Lekkerimäki? What's your thoughts on just the season he's having in the SHL? And what's your thoughts on DPD finally making the Canucks, even though it is the Abbotsford Canucks? That'd be it for this episode of Canucks Digest. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go down and leave a like, a comment. Let me know who your favorite players are. Let me know any questions, any videos you want covered. Let me know down in the comments. And that'd be it for this episode. Take care.